And I welcome you all on the webinar that is hedging a family-owned business by using various succession tool and capacity building initiatives of CMP. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to President CA Ranjit Kumarji Agarwal, CA Charanjot Singh Nanda, Vice President ICI, CA Dr. Rohit Ruatia ji, Chairman CMP ICI, and CA Umesh Sharma sir, Vice Chairman CMP ICI, and also to our eminent speaker, that is CA Gaurisha ma'am. I would like to hand over the session to Ms. Gaurisha ma'am. Ma'am, please.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Ayush. Thank you for the warm welcome. I would like to thank the CMP committee for giving me this opportunity to speak on such a topic over here. And I would like to welcome all the participants and thank you everyone for taking out the time in such a sunny day and attending this webinar. I hope that everyone would be attentive during the entire session and the heat wave will not affect the attention of the participants. So I would also like to thank
interrupt, ma'am, but sorry, I forgot to introduce yourself. Firstly, kindly, I
yeah,
request.
no problem. Please go ahead.
Ma'am, I'll tell you brief about the eminent speaker, that is Gaurisha Sokia ma'am. That she's a qualified chartered accountant. She have done her bachelor's of commerce from University of Mumbai and also have done LLB from University of Rajasthan. She is a very business enthusiast, chartered accountant with an experience of 7+ years. Her critical expertise is in solving SMEs on ground problems, growing businesses, and creating structures that functions and give sustainable results. Gained her experience in many corporates like credit field of ICICI, later expertise in many other controls, internal controls, and also have a very good knowledge in handling internal audit assignments and financial planning. Also, she is a co-founder of Master Insiders, that is a succession planning consultancy firm. So we that uses their experience and expertise in business continuity and transition to plan out the growth strategy to give your business the results it deserves. Sorry, ma'am. Thanks. Thank you, ma'am. Can you please start?
No problem. Thank you so much, Ayush. Thank you. I would also like to thank the chairman, CA Rohit Ravatia, and vice chairman, CA Umesh ji. Thank you for this opportunity. Now, I would like to present my screen to start the session. Yeah, I hope the screen is visible, tech team.
Visible, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So, starting with our today's session, it is about the most hard conversation that we are not able to do, that is the succession planning. Now, succession planning is something that cannot start without talking about death. And death is something which is a very, very hard conversation to talk about amongst each other. So, from our today's session, our agenda would be that why, as a professional, you should understand about succession, why you feel that this would be an interesting topic to start our practice or to grow our practice, or it is needed to help our clients. How succession can act as a catalyst for our professional practice. So how it can help us in growing our practices, because we have been always linked with clients which have where we can see that there is a generation change, and many a times clients are very personally connected to us. So this could be a really good tool to start into the practicing also. Then when is the right time to talk about it? Talking about succession, like I said, it's very hard to talk about it. So when would be the right time? And what is the 5-step approach to actually plan and implement the succession planning? So this would be our agenda for today. But along with this, what would be the takeaways in the next 2 hours? Let's talk about that. So initially, I just want to talk about the consciousness about succession planning, that everybody should be aware about it. Everybody should be able to talk about succession planning. Then what should be the approach to deal with the conflicts? So we see day to day a lot of family businesses have been growing up around us, but due to the family entering into the business, there are lots and lots of conflicts that we see around. So how to deal with such kind of conflicts? Then what is the difference between the distribution of assets and the distribution of business? Because ultimately business and assets are two different aspects. Then when we see a transition from one generation to next generation, then how to plan for this transition, how to see this transition, how to make it smoother. Then also to learn about the structuring of the family owned businesses so that our legacies, our long created legacies can be continued. Moving ahead, there are two books published regarding this. It is published by my partner Ravi Mamodia, Business Succession Planning, which the publisher is Taxman. And there are two editions that have come out, and third edition has been waiting. So this book has been recognized at various platforms, at various local newspapers, and podcasts are available on the YouTube and various other platforms. So if any time you want to talk about and understand more deeply about this topic, then this is a good book to refer to. Now, moving ahead, I always feel that death is something which is inevitable. So you cannot skip the reality, you cannot skip the death. So if you have to die one day, then why not die well? Why not plan for it? And why not have a good implemented plan and peaceful death when you are going to pass away? Because this is something that nobody can skip. So for this, I believe that there are, I am personally a little religious and spiritual person. So I don't know how many of you have heard about this, but there are two representatives of Lord Vishnu. Basically, he uses two of the animals, the Sarp and the Garud, as his vehicles while traveling. So what does it really represent? So according to me, there are two views to seeing everything in life. One is the Sarp view and one is the Garud view. So when we say Sarp view is something wherein a person is seeing the day-to-day things and is involved in the day-to-day life and has a shorter perspective towards things and can only see what is actually visible. But when we talk about the Garud view is something that represents a more broader view, a more bigger picture. So when we say that expand your vision, see broader, go ahead, see a long-term thing. So that is what is known as a Garud view. Now, many a times what happens is that when we see in real life, people are really involved in the day-to-day aspects only, and they get involved in it so much that they don't see the broader view to it. But what happens when you actually go with the Garud view, when you actually see the broader picture, when you take a step ahead, then I feel that you become a little different. So all these companies that you can see on the screen here, these are someone who have taken a Garud view. Why? Because they could see a bigger picture, they could take a step ahead, and they could plan for something that was a much bigger than a day-to-day aspect only. And that is why they are the brands now. Each brand here has a different story, a background story, which makes them unique. So it is very important in life to have this Garud view. Now, coming to the succession, what exactly is succession? Going by the definition, succession is nothing but a smooth transition of business from one generation to another, from one leader to another leader. But this transition could be either within the family or outside the family. Now, within the family, outside the family means that when you have a setup business, when the business is running successfully, then there comes a time wherein you have to pass on the business to somebody. Now, if it is being passed on to somebody from within the family, then it is known as family succession planning. And when it is handed over to somebody who is not a part of the family, then it is known as business succession planning. Definitely, there are various tools to plan for this, for both family as well as business. So moving ahead, we would discuss about both the tools of the succession planning. But we have to understand the cruciality of death that cannot be skipped. I'm again going to repeat it because it is the certain reality. So we have to be comfortable in talking about it so that it can be planned ahead. Things can be moved ahead in life. Now, after talking about what is succession planning, let's talk about why succession planning. Why is it so important to talk about succession planning? It is because Definitely about the death, like I keep emphasizing, it is the reality that cannot be skipped, but also because of other aspects, like it provides a long term strategic thinking to our business. It keeps the values, the family values that we want to carry on towards the legacy, it keeps them intact. There are tools to plan for it, wherein you can pass on your family values to the coming generations. Definitely, tax planning is an important aspect to it, because when your assets are going to be passed on to another generation, then there is a tax implication that comes ahead. So we need to understand those tax implications. Then finding the right successor, somebody who's matching your values, somebody who's matching your vision, somebody who's ready to take ahead what you have built and to create that legacy and to carry forward that legacy. So it's important to find the right kind of successor. Providing better and fair career opportunities. Definitely, by family businesses planning and family succession planning, there is an opportunity for better career options. Identifying the key employees. Team and employees is something that is the heart of any business. So those key employees needs to be identified and they needs to be promoted. They needs to be motivated to keep ongoing the business. Aligning individual aspirations with business. So each one of us has different passion, and that passion needs to be aligned with what the business is demanding and what they can as an individual contribute to that business. Legacy bound, definitely. Saving and growth of estate and wealth creation. So we'll talk about this in the very next upcoming slides, but it is also very important that for wealth creation, your succession planning is an important tool. So what happens if you don't plan for succession? So there is a very famous study by Boston Consulting Group, which says that if the succession is planned, then it reduces the amount spent on capital employed by 14%. It also increases the market capitalization, which means that your recognition in the market will definitely increase if your succession is planned. And it also increases the company's EBITDA by 5%. Now, these percentages are not a small figure that can be avoided. So definitely it means that succession plays an important role. So actually in corporates, even SEBI recognizes this, because SEBI mandates to have the corporates a well planned out succession plan. It is mandatory and it is recognized by SEBI. So if it is done to that extent, then it is definitely something that is very important and we should also incorporate it in our day-to-day lives. Coming to the family business aspect, if you see, there are 90% of the family businesses which are contributing to the GDP, especially in India. So in India, lots and lots of businesses are family owned businesses. And with the upcoming economical growth from becoming developing to a developed country, what we can see is that our economy, we project it to be 6.7 trillion GDP contribution in 2030. So if you see that high level of contribution, and if 90% of it is contributed by the family businesses themselves, then definitely there is a very, very big opportunity for these family businesses. Because if they don't cater to this opportunity, then definitely somebody else will take this opportunity. So it's better that if you have your client or your knowns who are family owned businesses, then they should take this opportunity and they should take the advantage of economic growth at present, so that they can create an advantage in their business and grow drastically. Now there are two aspects that needs to be understood, like I said earlier. One is succession of wealth and one is succession of business. So what exactly is wealth? Wealth is something that you have already accumulated. So it is a past incidence. It is something which you have already built, made an efforts towards, and now you have a certain amount or certain investment or certain assets and something that is already in existence. That is wealth. So to plan the succession of that, there are various other tools, like for example, will, gift, trust. We can plan the succession of wealth through these tools. But what about business? Like business is an ongoing process. It is a continuous activity. It is not something that is accumulated in the past and it is stopped now, but rather it is something which will grow in future. So it's a future incidents. It will continue. It is a non-stop continuity that will happen. So how to plan for this business succession? So for this, the succession planning is important. Business succession planning is important. There are various tools to plan for this succession planning. So for example, family constitution or family offices, these kind of things, IPO, your insurance, liquidity management. So all these falls under the scope of succession of business. Along with succession of wealth and business, there is also 4 important needs of business that needs to be understood. What is need of business? So basically, if you have observed around you, there are different kinds of assets, tangible and intangible assets, which every business has or every business aspires to have and to grow. So one is the tangible, like land, machinery, building. So heavy investments in that shows that, okay, the business is having certain amount of asset backed up. And another is moving ahead in the market. It is important to have the goodwill, to create the brand, to have those kind of brand value. But along with this, there are 2 more important aspects. One is entrepreneur and one is the manager, which is very relevant to the succession planning. Entrepreneur means that somebody who has the skill of taking the decision and who can direct the business ahead. And manager is somebody who can execute that direction and manage those skills. So entrepreneur and manager, both skills are very important, but it is important to identify in the family that which member is possessing what kind of skills, so that the right roles can be allocated to those kind of family members. Now, a stake can always be given to the manager, but that stake would be different and the stake to the entrepreneur will be different, because for both, since they possess both different kind of skills, there would be different kind of motivation, different kind of remuneration, different kind of recognition that needs to be given to both the people. So entrepreneurs are somebody who will continue the legacy, but managers are somebody who will grow the business. So parallel working and identification of the skills and allocating the right roles as per the entrepreneur and as per the manager in the family business is very important. Moving ahead, now it is again talking about family business. One very important aspect is to understand these 3 circles. So whenever there are family members who are involved in the business, there are always certain decisions that needs to be taken who would fall under either of the 3 circles. One is the family, one is the owner, one is the management. So a family member may act only as a family, or a family member may be the shareholder having the ownership of the business, or a family member could be only the manager who is also a family and and somebody managing the business, but may not have the stake or may not have that kind of ownership. When and how should this be allocated? So let's understand this through a very simple example. Say, suppose there are 2 partners, Karthik and Suresh, with equal percentile of ownership. Now, these are the first generation. Now they have the upcoming generations wherein they both have 2 sons or 1 son and 1 daughter. Now, out of this, one of the son is active in the business. That is Mr. Sanjay. Karthik's son is active in the business, younger son. But the elder son is still doing some job, who has not started joining the business. So there may be 2 different kind of situations wherein in the family wherein the decision making is required. One, for example, say in the business they want to acquire a certain kind of land. Now this is a topic, this is a decision that needs to be taken which is purely business based. So this is something that needs to be taken by the active family members, that is Karthik, Suresh and Sanjay, who are currently the active member in the business of the family. Why is it important for them only to take the decision? Because this decision requires the application of the logical brain. It requires to see the finances. It requires to see the prospect of the business towards this. But at the same time, on the other hand, if there is another decision that needs to be taken of, say, Mr. Suresh's daughter's wedding. Now, this is something wherein every family member would have a say in it. So every family member, whether active or non-active, have to sit and have to take this decision. Why? Because this decision is to be derived from an emotional approach. So that is the difference. One is the logical brain talking, one is the emotional brain talking. Coming back to this circle, we have to see that the decision that needs to be taken, that person has to take it as a family from the emotional aspect, or as an owner, or as a manager from the logical and the finance aspect accordingly. If this is taken according to this, then a lot of conflicts can be avoided amongst the family businesses. Moving ahead, another aspect that needs to be understood is the Gen Z. So currently, if you see, there is a generation, different kinds of people born into different years are segregated into by different names, say millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. But why Gen Z is only so important? So Gen Z is somebody who are born between 1997 to 2012, which means currently, if we see, these are the people who are the upcoming generation in any of the businesses. So if they are the ones who are taking the reins of the business, then it is important to understand the mindset of these generation, Gen Z. Now, a few of the aspects of this Gen Z, or few of the highlights of this Gen Z mindset, if we see, then these are very digital natives, because they have seen a lot of technological advancements in their lives. So they are very digital pro. After COVID-19, they are very much into environment and climate protection, and they have this thing to contribute towards the environment and the society. They are also known for their idealism, because they have a very good ideation, they have a very good innovative thought. In everything that they do, they want to do it in a new, with some newness, in a new way, in an innovative way. They have a feeling, a sense of belongingness, to be inclusive and to contribute to the society, to have a supportive community, to be in that environment. At the same time, they have a very good advantage of being adaptable and resilient. So these are the few aspects of the mindset of the Gen Z. So how does this differ from Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z? So if we talk about, say, marriage, for example, earlier for our grandparents, marriage was something which was to be done by the parents' wishes. They didn't even used to see each other. This was also not allowed. But say, for example, our parents or coming next generation, now to that extent, they moved towards the part where they were open enough to talk about the marriage, and to maybe choose their own, why they, with whom they want to get married. But if you talk about Gen Z, if you talk to them, they would have a big question that why there is a need to marry. So this is the change in the mindset. This shows how drastically they have changed. It's not all negative or not all positive, but it's about understanding that mindset. Because if we don't understand that mindset, then we have to see that these are the ones who are taking the lead, who are becoming the leaders. So they need to groom according to this mindset. They need to be understood according to this mindset, so that our businesses can grow and our businesses can reach the heights accordingly. So after talking about what is succession planning, let's talk about when succession planning should be done. So whenever we talk about when a succession planning should be done, there is a very famous Chinese proverb which says that the time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So this absolutely goes with the succession planning as well, that there is no fixed time to plan for succession. But I would say that whenever you plan to retire, at least 10 to 15 years before that, one must start planning for succession, because it is not a fast pacing process. It is a very slow process. It happens gradually. There are lots of aspects to it, and not just planning is enough, but implementation of that planning is also very important. Tools to implement that plan is important. Hence, for example, if you plan to retire at the age of 65, then at 50 or 55 is the right age to start planning for succession. Now, according to according to our humans, there is a human life cycle. So human life cycle in the sense that there is an entire process of humans that is there, that is naturally there. For example, when we are born, we are babies, then we come into a teenage, then adolescence, then adults, and then old age. So this is an entire cycle, human cycle, that happens. With the same aspect, there is also a business life cycle that takes place. A business is also goes through few stages of life which cannot be skipped. What are those stages? So it begins with an ideation stage, with a concept, with an idea. Then it moves towards the startup stage, then to the growth, then to the maturing, and then exit or retirement. So what is important is that a business will also face the exit or retirement phase. So one needs to understand this business life cycle, like just like human life cycle cannot be skipped as a natural process. In the same way, business life cycle is also a very natural process, even that cannot be skipped. So we have to plan for each stage, so we cannot simply skip the last stage, and last stage is succession planning or the exit strategy. So that is the most common mistake that people face, that they don't plan in advance. But if we plan well in advance, then we can die well, we can have a good legacy carrying forward. Now, after what and when, let's talk about how to start the process of succession planning, how one can start this planning process. Again, understanding how to start succession planning, talking about the tools to succession planning. Before that, I feel there are four important aspects or assets, kinds of assets that needs to be understood. What are these assets? Now, every business has these four assets, which is physical, financial, intangible, digital. Physical would be your land, building, these kind of assets. Financial assets are your shares, mutual funds, your investments. Intangible, again, your goodwill, copyright, trademark, logo. Your digital assets also, because right now at this time, your social media is also very important. Your mobile number is also very important. That has also become an asset, if you see, because a lot of your data is stored in that. A lot of your branding, a lot of your marketing is through your LinkedIn or your social media profiles, or your mobile number is very important because your customers and your vendors are connected through your mobile number only. So these assets needs to be taken in mind while discussing about how we can start with the succession planning. So, what is the objective of succession for the client? Why would your client want to go ahead and do the succession planning? So, it is important that when we talk about succession with a client, we need to make them understand these important aspects, that why they need this. First of all the wealth that they have accumulated till now, they have to protect this wealth. This wealth should pass on to the right person in the right manner, in the way that they have thought. Their thoughts should be implemented practically. So to protect this wealth, the succession is important. Then one is wealth already created, and what about growing this wealth? To grow this wealth, again, succession planning is important, and it is the objective of succession. And third aspect comes about transferring of this wealth, transferring it to the right leader, transferring it to the in the right hands, so that the legacy can be carried forward. So a need, an objective for any client could be either three or one of it, or a combination of two of it. So we have to see that why the client wants to go and do for succession, or why is there a need for it. Now, how to start with the succession planning? Succession planning can be done in a very basic 5-step approach. This 5-step approach is very unique, which has been created and which has been described more detail in the book Business Succession Planning. But we'll talk very briefly about it over here. So what are those 5 steps? First step is owner's vision. Seeing clarity in the vision, bringing clarity, because if we don't know what the vision is, then we cannot move forward, we cannot move ahead. Second comes the family constitution, which is a tool to plan for this. Third comes the alignment between the business and the family, how the business can be better aligned with the vision of the family, and the family can be vice versa aligned with the vision of the business. Then comes the successor identification, identifying the right kind of successor, identifying the right kind of person who would be the leader. Grooming of that leader is very important. Then last aspect would be the estate planning, the taxation impact. Once the 5-step approach is followed, then you're ready to plan to go ahead with your exit strategy. So we'll discuss this 5-step in detail. Coming to the first step. First step is owner's vision. Now, what is owner's vision? So ultimately, the business owners have a vision with which they started the business, or have a vision where they want to take it forward, where they want to take it. So vision is something that is very much focused on tomorrow. That is something that we see, that Garud view that you see with the vision. Because if there is a clarity in the vision, then that clarity will bring focus. This focus will channelize towards the energy, which will ultimately lead to the results. So vision is something that is tomorrow. Mission is something that is needed, that what actions would be taken to today. Those actions needs to be taken so that you can fulfill that vision. That would be the mission. Goal are the broad outcomes of the efforts, what goals you want to achieve in the nearest future. Passion is something which would be derived from your emotions, the motivation. Why every day you would be motivated to go and to put your extra effort so that you can achieve that vision, mission, and goals. Purpose is the reason, is the why behind what you do, why you want to contribute, why you want to do this. So if you are derived by a purpose, then it will definitely help you leading towards your vision. Values are something which are the ethics, your principles, that cannot be compromised while taking any kind of decision or while performing any kind of act. So to have the owner's vision, it is important to be clear on these aspects, to be clear on the vision, mission, goal, passion, purpose, and values of the business. To do this, what tools can be used? Again, to have a clarity in the vision, there should be a proper business plan. Now, go and check how many of the clients or how many people around you with the family businesses or with the businesses do have a clear business plan. Are they clear? What are they going to do in the next 5 years? What are their targets? What are their plannings for the next 5 years? So business plan, having a business plan in place would definitely bring clarity. Then comes the organization chart. What is the organization chart today, and what would be the organization chart in the next 5 years? From this organization chart, there is a gap that is created. This gap is something that needs to be worked towards. This is something that is a part of the planning, because this is where we need to put the right people in the right place, or change, or a lot of aspects would come out of it. But organization chart would definitely bring clarity. Then alignment of the team with this vision. Your vision is important to be communicated to your team, to your members, to everybody. Then system oriented. There should be systems in place. There should be well planned out things in the business which are running for the smoother operations of the business. So there is a very famous case study of Tata. Talking about Tata, what is Tata actually very famous for? If you see, Tata family follows Zoroastrianism. This is one of the world's oldest monastic religions. What does it actually mean? It means good thoughts, good words, good deeds. So Tata places a very important emphasis on their employees, on taking care of their team, their employees. They are very, very focused on that. There was an attack that happened, 26/11, very famous attack that happened in Mumbai. There was a terrorist attack. But do you know that all the people working in that hotel during that time, nobody was instructed to stay back. Nobody was instructed to not leave. They all knew all the back doors, because all the hotel staff is aware about what are the back doors, where they can exit, what they can plan. But none of them left. None of them. In fact, each one of them made an extra effort to talk to their customers. They called up in each room. They provided support to the extent possible till the time possible. Why were they doing that? Why would they do that? This is not something that was communicated by any of them during that time. This was because Tata has incorporated these kind of value system within their employees from the beginning. If you work in Tata, they play a very important emphasis on this, and they have communicated it so well to the lowest ground level, that each one of them was very much intact and very much wanted to support the team of Tata and wanted to support their customers, their people staying in the hotel. So this is something that Tata has built. This is the value system that the Tata has generated. Coming to the second step. Second step is family constitution. Like first step, we said that the clear vision. Vision clarity is important, and this vision clarity should be so important that it should be well communicated throughout the layers of your institute, of your organization. So coming to the second step is the family constitution to plan for succession. Now, what is family constitution? You must have heard about the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution is something that is created by India so that for better governance and for the functioning of the decided things, for the functioning of the rules and the policies and the principles in India. So in the similar manner, there is a family constitution that is created. A family constitution also helps in practicing the governance within the family businesses, how things will flow. There are various aspects to it. For example, what would be the family values? These family values would be carried out in what way? What kind of meetings needs to be held? What kind of education to be provided to the family members? How they should be onboarded? How their exit plan should be made? How it is important to how their transition would be made? What kind of CSR activities can be done? All this becomes a part of family constitution. In order to actually implement this family constitution, there are various tools that can be used. That is family council. For example, a family council is something which is formed by the core representatives, the core members of the family. In the same way, there is family assembly. Family assembly is responsible for holding the regular meetings. Family association for exclusive meetings. There is family fund that is created, a small bank that could be used for the for multiple purposes, say CSR activities or any of the family or the business activities. A family fund could be used, and what would be the utility of it, that could be defined in the family constitution. Then comes family office. Family office is something that is created at the CXO levels, that holds these kind of different kinds of things and that provides different various kinds of services. So family constitution is the second step. Once after having the clarity of the business plan, then it is important to have a constitution in place to implement various decided things so that these things are followed in the future. This having the family constitution would help in actually aligning the things. How aligning the things? Because third step is alignment between the family and the business. What the business has decided in its business plan and what the family values to be carried forward and other aspects that are decided in the constitution. Now these needs to be aligned. Every member of the family, especially the active members, needs to be aligned with the vision of the business, and what the individual family members want should be aligned with the business as well. So for example, your core values, when aligned well, would align with the management philosophy in the business. Family commitment would align with the strategic commitment. Family vision with the business vision. Family enterprise plan with the business strategy plan. So in this manner, it is important to align the family and business and bring them to the same page, bring them to the same. Moving ahead, coming to the next step, it's about successor identification and grooming. This is our fourth step. Now, what is successor identification and grooming? So, ultimately, when our business plan is created, when we are aligned with the vision, and when we have a constitution in place, then it is time to hand over the reins to the next generation. Handing over the reins to the next generation means that this would be the leader. So, how to identify the right kind of leader? How to groom this leader? So, there are 3-step model that can be done to actually that can help us as a tool to identify the right kind of leader. That is assessment, management, and grooming. Leadership is something that somebody who should have the entrepreneurship skills, somebody who is the boss ultimately, to whom everybody would listen to, who could create a productive team, who would be that empowering. So to identify these kind of leadership skills, various kind of assessments can be done amongst the family members. For example, based on their experience, based on their learnings, based on their past experiences, they can be assessed on various aspects of life, and accordingly they can be groomed towards it. So how can, after identifying, but it is important to also groom those leaders. So how to groom these leaders? Now, grooming doesn't only mean having the education. Your upcoming generation may be very educated, may have those kind of degrees in place, but are they right fit to fit into the business? Are they right to actually align with the business and to take things ahead? For this, it is important to have them, to give them experiential learning. Experiential learning would come from the mentors would be somebody who are already, who have worked in this business for the first generation, who have actually worked for so many years. So it is ultimately the past 20 or 30 years of experience that you have to pass on to your next generation. Now, how you can pass on that experience to your next generation in the best possible manner would be the best kind of grooming that you could provide to the upcoming generation. For this, there is a very famous book, Harsh Realities by Harish Mariwala. It is a very interesting case study that we must focus on. So, looking at Harsh Mariwala, although he had from his own son and daughter into the business and he had a family, but despite of that, he did not appoint his own son or daughter as the next as the CEO. Rather, he appointed one of his employee as the CEO. Now, why would he do that? It would sound something that would, very why you would not appoint somebody from the family itself? But this is a very logical decision that he has taken. Business is always separate from family. Going by the emotions, the decisions cannot be taken in the business. He took a very logical decision. He saw the competency of the leadership. He saw who would be best to take my business ahead, to grow my business ahead. He gave a stake to his son and daughter, but the main reins were handed over to the employee. This is something which actually proves that succession is not just a birthright. It is something that needs to be earned. Your competency and your leadership is something which will make you a good leader in the future. Moving ahead, after coming to the 4th step, before coming to the 5th step of succession planning, first we have discussed about what the vision, how a clarity in vision is important. Then we have discussed about the family constitution. Then we have discussed about the alignment between these two. And finally, we've discussed about identifying the right successor. But coming to the estate planning, before that, there are few more things that one needs to understand. Now, a business, to continue a business, to have a good financial health of a business, one very important aspect is liquidity management. What do you mean by liquidity management? So remember the 4 assets that we discussed earlier. There is an investment that is involved in all the 4 kind of assets, be it your tangible assets, your intangible assets, your physical assets, your social media, anything, everything requires an investment. So once the existing generation, what if the existing generation passes away without doing the liquidity management? Now, without doing the liquidity management, if that passes away, then gradually what happens is that all the investment in these assets, if they are not taken care properly, then there could be a high amount of debt that could raise to the business, because of which the coming generation would not be able to grow the business, or rather maintain the existence of the business. Now coming generation also has new ideas, so they need a free hand to work, they need some funds to work, to explore new areas. They need funds to manage the rest of the debts that are there in the company, to manage the wealth of the family members, to distribute it well. That is why we need liquidity. So for this liquidity, there could be different tools that could help us. For example, there could be an IPO that the business could come up with. This IPO would help with coming in the finances, coming in the money flow during the time of the exit that the existing generation wants to plan. But this is just one of the way. Another way, if the generation wants to hand it over to the next generation within the family, then insurance could be a very good tool. How insurance could help? So, say for example, let's understand this by a case study. There was Mr. Kumar who had a very good business in the technology segment. Now, he had not planned for his succession, and suddenly he had a premature death. Now, because of his premature death, what could be the areas that could get affected in the business? For example, say because of this, the customers and vendors were very connected to only him. So suddenly they were very uncertain about, because he passed away, so they were uncertain now who would deal with us. They had a lot of questions on their mind. There were loans that was taken by the business, so bankers started calling, and all the lenders started having concerns that who would pay back their debts. He also had some accumulated debt, but because of his sudden absence, how would that wealth be distributed? So instead of this, if he would have planned for enough liquidity, say for example, if he would have taken an insurance, at least to that extent, wherein he could hedge the amount of the debts of the business, then at least the upcoming generation would not be worried about arranging for the funds. Rather, they would focus about growing the business with the existing liquidity that they would have in their hands. Now, another different aspect that one needs to focus is that just talking about it is not enough. Implementation is very important. And for implementation, one should have good documentation in place. Everything that is at each step, each stage of succession planning, documentation plays a very important role. It should be regularly monitored. For example, just creating a family constitution is not enough, but making sure that the aspects of the family constitution is being followed regularly, those regular meetings are held, those values are actually staying intact, the vision is matching in every decision making. These needs to be understood and needs to be implemented. Open-mindedness, another aspect. Why open-mindedness? So talking about succession, first of all, itself needs a very open mind. So planning definitely needs a very open, and you should be able to say the truth aloud, should be able to accept others' truth as well. So all these aspects is very important to have an open mind. Tools for succession planning. We have discussed few of the tools. For example, we discussed family constitution, we discussed for liquidity management, insurance, IPO. To pass on the accumulated wealth, there are different tools like will, gift, trust. These kind of tools could be used. So lot of tools can be used for succession planning. Few of the tools that we have not discussed, now we will discuss about it, which is also the laws and the regulations, which will cover our will. This is also the fifth step. So last and fifth step of succession planning is estate planning. To plan for our estate, it's important to understand few basics about taxation impact, taxation laws. Now, when a person passes away, with maintaining a will or without maintaining a will, if they pass away with maintaining a will, then it is known as a testamentary succession, because he or she has created his will. But what if the person dies without creating a will? When that happens, it is known as intestate succession. Now, in both the cases, according to the religion, different laws are applicable. For example, in intestate succession, if you are a Hindu, Jain, or Sikh, then Hindu Succession Act would apply. Similarly, if you're a Christian, Parsi, or Jew, then Indian Succession Act would apply, and in Muslim, then Shariat law will apply. In the same manner, if you have already created a will, then in that case, that would be the case of testamentary succession. And in case of Hindu, Christian, Parsi, Sikh, Jew, Indian Succession Act would apply. And in case of Muslim, again, Shariat law will apply. So, what is intestate law and domicile? So, before understanding the intestate law, that is one who passes away without creating a will, then what will happen? How the assets will pass on? To understand that, it is important to understand the importance of domicile as well. So, for example, if you are somebody who is a person staying in France, who is domiciled in France, whose main country is, whose main resident of France, but you have an immovable property in India and you have a movable property in India, then how would the succession laws apply? So basically, for immovable property, the laws of Indian law will apply to that immovable property. So if you have any land that you have invested in India, then the succession of that would be applicable according to the Indian laws. But if you have a movable property, then your succession would be applicable according to the domicile. That is, while you passed away. For example, if you were in France, then as per the British law, the succession would pass away, would be applicable on the movable property. So immovable property, it would be the Indian law, the law where the property is situated. For movable property, it would be the law of where you are domiciled. Now, intestate Hindu. In case of a person who dies without making a will, how the succession would take place. First, we'll discuss about male and then we'll discuss about female because both are different. Now, in case of male, when he passes away, it is moving from left to right, the order of succession. So, first, it would go to the class 1 legal heirs, then class 2, then agnates, then cognates. Who are class 1, class 2, agnates and cognates? Like class 1 would include your son, daughter, mother, your widow. Your class 2 would include your father, siblings, grandparents, etc. Your agnates are the male descendants and cognates are somebody who are not related to the male's descendants. In case of intestate female, if a female dies without making a will, then in that case, it would first pass on to the son, daughter, husband, then to the heirs of the husband, then next parents of the female who has passed away, then heirs of the father, and then heirs of her mother. In that manner, the succession would flow. Testamentary succession means somebody who has made a will and then he or she passes away. So what exactly is a will? If a person is dying after making a will, then the assets are distributed as per the wishes, as per the law, as per the points mentioned in the will. But to understand this, first we need to understand what is a will. So a will is something that is a legal declaration of the person's wishes, of the person's desire. For example, if you wish to pass on your assets in a certain manner to a certain people in a certain percentage, then that you would put down on a piece of paper that would be known as a will. So this is important to, a will is something that is converting basically your wishes into the reality. So this will, it details out all the estates of a person of that the person has owned and how he or she wants to pass it on to the upcoming members of the family or to anybody outside the family. But it is important to understand that a will would take effect only and only after the person dies, not before that. And it can be revoked as many times as you want during the lifetime. So the last existing will that you've created, that will would be the valid will. Now, why one should make a will? So if you want to pass on the assets according to your wishes and without creating any conflicts over it, without wanting to create any disputes over it, then definitely it is important to create a will because it provides a complete detailed description of how the property would go, to whom it would pass away, and in what manner it would be passed on to. Then again, it is better to make a will at an early age. When a will should be made at an early age, because it can be revoked, it can be revised as many times as possible, but you never know. Like it is said, death is uncertain. So at least having a will is something that would put your thoughts into a piece of paper. Now, who can make a will? Any person who is of sound mind, be it a male or a female, and who is not illiterate, who is not terminally ill. A very old person can also make a will. A married woman can also make a will. An illiterate person can also make a will. Anybody can make a will. But only condition of it is he or she should be of a sound mind. That's it. Otherwise, any person who can make a will. Also, a person who is intoxicated or one who does not understand what he is doing, then he cannot make a will. So again, sound mind is important to make a will. It is not important to be literate. It is not important. The age is not a criteria. Nothing is a criteria, but only sound mind is a criteria. Now, how to make a will? Can a will be handwritten? Yes, it can be typed. It can be handwritten. It can be vocal. But important things, if you are making a will, that should be taken care of to make it a valid will. It should be either signed or thumbed by the testator. Testator is somebody who's making the will. It should be signed by 2 witnesses at least. It should be properly dated. Date should be mentioned. Oral will is allowed only in case of Muslims and in case of soldiers. And there should be properly designated beneficiaries in the will. It is not required that the will should be stamped or it should be registered. There is no legal requirement of it. However, it is always recommended to register the will so that to avoid any kinds of disputes. Who should be the witness to the will? Will should have at least minimum 2 witnesses to make it a valid will. 2 or more witnesses are good enough. Now, a witness can be somebody who needs to be somebody whom the testator who has actually seen the testator signing on the will. So if I am making my will, then my witness should be somebody who has seen me signing the will, that yes, this will is created by me. It should be somebody who has received a personal acknowledgement from the signature. I should know the content of the will, because I am being a witness to the will, then I should know the contents of that will. Now, can a witness also be a beneficiary? Yes, a witness can be a beneficiary, but a witness cannot be an executor of the will. However, it is also recommended that a witness should not be a beneficiary in the will, because it is always advisable to keep the witness absolutely separate from the beneficiary or the executor. Who can be a beneficiary? Can anyone be a beneficiary? Yes, it is not important that a relative should be a beneficiary. Anybody you want to pass on your assets to can be a beneficiary. It can be either your relative or your friend, your employee or a CA or even a stranger. Anybody could be will. Now, even there was a news wherein a person by the name of Karl Lager wanted to give everything to his cat. And he gave around 2,700 crores to his cat. He made cat as a beneficiary. So people make dogs, cats as their beneficiary. That is also very much valid. Now, who can be an executor of the will? Executor is somebody who puts the will into action, who makes sure that the contents of the will are followed as per the written content. So, how should an executor be selected? An executor should be somebody who is close to the testator, who understands the mindset of the testator, in the sense that if there is any clause that is saying something which might create a confusion, but by the understanding of what the intention of the testator was, then the executor plays an important role in that. He should be somebody who is definitely younger than the person creating the will, because if the executor passes away before the testator, then that would be of no use. Then he should be somebody who is willing by himself to be an executor. So what are the actual duties of an executor? Executor takes care of the funeral expenses. He pays off all the debts. He makes sure that the will contents of the wills are being followed as per the intention of the testator. Now, another important confusion that creates over here is, does nomination or joint holding prevails over will? So, who is a nominee? A lot of times when we see around, when we see in our banks, we fill any kind of form or open any kind of bank account or in insurances, we fill out the name of the nominee. So, who exactly is a nominee? And is nominee, if I have filled out the name of somebody as a nominee, then will my assets be passed on to the nominee? No. Your nominee is just a custodian of your assets. He's just somebody who is taking care of the assets meanwhile. But the assets would be passed on as per the will or as per the succession laws in case of non-creation of a will. So he's somebody who just will receive the assets only and till the time it is not passed on to the actual successor. So he's just a custodian of the will. Now there is an interesting section in the Insurance Act which talks about the beneficially nominee. Normally, like we talked about, nominee is not somebody who's the beneficiary. Beneficiary and nominee are separate. But in insurance, there is a clause which allows you to create a beneficially nominee. So if somebody is appointed as a beneficially nominee, then that person would be appointed, the assets would pass on to that person without mentioning his name in the will. For example, if you appoint a person as the beneficiary nominee, then it is not necessary that your a person should be mentioned in the will or anywhere else. Your a person is the successor then in that case. There is a specific clause that allows in case of insurance only. Now, say for example, if you have an individual property and you have an HUF property and you want to will it, how would you will it? Would you be able to will both the properties in your will? So we have to understand one important thing is that an individual properties that are owned individually, only those property can be willed. HUF is not an individual property. HUF is not a property that is held in your name. HUF is a separate entity. Hence, the properties held in the name of HUF cannot be included in your will. It cannot be passed on according to your wishes through your will. There are other modes that needs to be used for passing on the HUF property. So in your will, only and only your individual property can be included. Now, breaking the monotony, let's talk about a very famous dialogue by Amitabh Bachchan from Bagban. He says that एक बाप अगर अपने बेटे की जिंदगी का पहला कदम उठाने में उसकी मदद कर सकता है, तो वही बेटा अपने बाप के आखिरी कदम उठाने में उसे सहारा क्यों नहीं दे सकता? Basically, what he's trying to say is that if the father is helping the son in taking his first initial steps, then why not the same son can help his father in his old age in taking his last steps? It is a very true concept which is done and can be planned out through succession. So after understanding all the 5 steps of succession, that is having a clear vision with the business plan, having a family constitution in place, aligning your business and your family, then your grooming, identification of successor and your grooming, and finally estate planning. Once all the 5 steps have been planned for, then it is the right time. Then you are prepared to plan for your exit strategy. How you can plan for your exit strategy. Then there are various methods that can be used. For example, you can sell your entire business to somebody outside through mergers or something. If you don't have a successor within the family or within your key core team members, you can also pass the business to another family member, your extended family member, whom you feel that would take care of your business in a better way. There are different kinds of buyouts that can take over, that can happen during this. But it is important that you need to have this in your brain that you have to plan for your exit. There is a time that would come, death is inevitable, and you have to plan for your exit strategy. So whatever strategies you choose, you have the right time of bandwidth to plan for it, to implement it, to execute it. So what could be the next best action plan? Your next best action plan is regarding the exit strategy, like we discussed, either you can hand it over, or you can plan for an expansion by combining into a venture, or you can sell your business through mergers or buyouts. Now let's talk about few myths on succession. What succession? So a lot of time when we talk about succession, lot of people ask that whether is the succession something that is only for rich or poor. No, it's not necessary. Anybody can plan for succession, because every person who is owning a business can plan or should plan for succession. Even a thadi wala outside, or chai wala outside can plan for succession. Is succession planning about retirement only? But I'm not ready to retire currently. Like we saw, retirement is after following the 5 steps. It is the last step, not even a step. It is after the 5 steps has been planned for, then you plan for your retirement. So before that, there is an entire procedure. So it is not like retirement ke time. We have to plan for succession only at the time of retirement only. Giving up ownership means giving up control and income. No, through proper succession planning, you can stay involved. You can be a mentor in your business. You can actually see, you have the time and the bandwidth to see that transition process, to monitor it, to make changes, to make adjustments with the upcoming generations. So if you plan on time, then you can do all these things. There is no effect on my business profit, even if I'm not prepared for transferring the business to next generation. Here we saw a clear study by the Boston Group, where we talked about the planned transition, how the planned transition could help us save a good amount on the expenditures and rather increase our EBITDA. So if everybody have been shaken up a little, or thinking about why succession, what succession, and a bit about thoughts of talking about hard conversations related to succession, then let's see how we can begin about it now. How to actually start with it. So what kind of services that you can offer as a professional? As a professional, what we can do is, first step that we should do is, we should see the due diligence. We can do a succession due diligence. By succession due diligence meant that identifying the objective, why your client would need succession, where your client is stuck, whether there are these kind of problems that we discuss, whether he's stuck with that problem, whether he needs that transition, whether he needs those kind of areas, those kind of services that we've talked about, those kind of tools that can actually help him in growing the business. Then we can talk about the vision and mission, whether there is a business plan in place, whether there is vision, mission, whether there is a board created in the family, whether there are experts on the board or not, whether there is a family constitution in place. If the successor has joined just by simply on the basis of its education, whether his grooming has been taken place in a right manner or not, whether the will has been made or registered or not, whether insurance has been planned for him or not, insurance policies taken in that manner or not. These kind of services you can go and you can offer. Continuing this, there is a bundle of family office services, wherein you can go ahead with the client and talk about, in the board meetings you can conduct, wherein they can have discussions, open discussions. Like it's very important to communicate, to have those kind of open discussions within the family business with the active family members, wherein even experts from outside are sitting, and you are holding those meetings, and you are communicating well what is going in the business and in the family. Then compliances of the family office, any kind of trust that has been created, so accounting and compliances for that. Planning for the taxation of the family, including the wealth management services can be provided by you, and drafting of different agreements and documents, implementing the insurance policies, planning for the IPO, going for the mergers. All these can be planned, and these services can be provided. So what should you do now at present? At present, nothing, but first step is to analyze your as is situation of the client. Do the succession due diligence, like I said. See where your client needs help, where he's stuck, at what point he has reached in the business, what could be the next need of the business to take it ahead. So analyze the as is situation. Then understand the family matrix and the family legacy. Understand who all are there in the family, who all are interested, who all are active members, who are non-active members, what the existing generation is planning for the business. After that, follow the simple 5-step approach that we discussed about owner's vision, about getting clarity in the vision, mission, creating the business plan, drafting the family constitution, aligning the business with the family, identifying the successor, grooming his leadership skills, and finally planning the estate of it. Choose the right kind of exit strategy for your client. See whether your client would exit in the manner of a merger, or in the manner of a IPO, or in the manner of handing over in the existing family or to somebody else. See what kind of exit strategy can be implemented. Then assist your client in drafting a will. Help him in putting his wishes on a piece of paper so that he can be peaceful about that at least. Another thing, everybody can scan this. So this would give a summary of the book Business Succession Planning along with the checklist. Like I said, we have discussed very briefly about the 5-step approach, but this book contains a very detailed format of it. So a summary could be provided, could be get from by scanning this. So everybody are requested to scan this for better understanding on this topic and for more detailed understanding of this. At last, I would like to thank you, everybody. Thank you to the committee members, and thank you to the CMP committee for giving me this opportunity. And most importantly, I would like to thank you to the audience for listening so patiently and providing their attention. I am sure all the queries have been posted on the links that has been provided earlier. So I would request now Ayush to take it ahead.
I'll check all the queries what I've received. I'll update you that within a minute.
Yes.
Hi, the question one that we have received is that one question was like political parties often forced to collect huge amount of donations from business houses. If we do not pay, business is likely to be adversely affected. How one should deal with that?
Can you repeat it once?
Yeah, the question is related to the political parties. So in respect of businesses, while to carry on the businesses, the political parties we have to often force us to collect the huge amount of donations from business houses. It
Right.
means
Right.
that if the business parties will not be paying, then business is likely to get adversely affected. Then how one should deal with that related to succession? But the question have been raised like that. Two questions only.
Yeah. So ultimately, I feel this is again something that is related to the liquidity. We discussed about the aspect of liquidity management. So if this is something that is a part of your CSR activity and that needs to be done, that needs to be contributed, then those huge amount, definitely either you are doing it for saving the taxes or we are doing it for this, but it is affecting the liquidity of the business. So the tools that can be planned is through liquidity management, through insurance, this could be planned off well.
Okay, thanks a lot. One more question that I've been raised is that that the businesses that are of various types, like can be said as related to retail, wholesale, and etc. The own business requirements education level means the question is that there should what should be the minimum criteria of education level the own business requires education to a desired level. Okay, one second, one second. Hello. Sorry for the interruption. Sorry, very sorry. And the question was that the businesses are of various types like retail, wholesale. The own business requires education to a desired level. Okay,
Education.
experience and must have a visualization in regards as well global as well as the domestic as well as economic conditions. Since business may be domestic as well as in global nature. So, how much have one should have a knowledge of political influence, and if so, how we should taken care of. The business sometimes need to be changed due to innovations. So, what are the factors? How should one should keep mind so that success of the business could be extended to another level also. Matlab, for instance, to the next generations. It's the question is like that.
So basically, you're talking about the political influence.
No, 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 not related to political. That was the earlier question. This question is related to means what should be the desired level of education that a person should
Education.
get.
Okay. So
Yeah,
basically, talking about that, it's not important to have that kind of degree education. What is important is to have the experiential education. So ultimately, if you have that industry knowledge, no matter where you want to switch and what is going happening, but if you're aware and if you have the industry knowledge, then you can plan enough to survive in that industry and to take things ahead, to have that edge ahead. But like we discussed, so there are a lot of people around who have a very innovative product, who have a very innovative this thing, but they are very restricted to their own areas only. They are not able to expand. Why does that happen? That happens because they are not planned for it in ahead. They are not seeking right kind of mentorship and right kind of advices. So if you actually want have an innovation, and if you feel that this is your limit, this is your limit and your existing blockage where you are standing, then it's always beneficial to go ahead and to seek mentorship from outside. There is nothing like seeking knowledge from the degree. There is always seeking knowledge practically. So have that go and talk to the industry experts outside and seek their advice and what needs to be done and how it can be handled.
one more question that is that has been asked is that is succession planning done through the video act? Is it legal evidence and valid rather than black means in documentation through videos?
Done through videos.
Yeah, video act as legal evidence. That's a question that I've been asked.
So, having the documentation in whatever format, be it video recordings or be it any kind of recordings, it is definitely valid. But talking about validity, where validity? For example, if you're talking about the will, if you're talking about there needs to be tools, trust, these kind of things needs to be well stamped, registered, and well executed. But having a plan is something that could be in the form of video, it could be in the form of audio, it could be in the form of document, anything. There is no legality that needs to be proved of the plan. There is only legality of the tools that you are using.
Okay, okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you, ma'am, for the such an insightful session. It was great to have you here, and thank you everyone, the BOS team, committee for members and practice team, Rohit Ruatia ji, and everyone, Vice President, President Sir, Vice President Sir, CMP President, everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you, ma'am, for attending the session.
Thank you.